Well, hello again. I'm glad to see you back. I'm taking another peek inside my book, Beyond Me, Dissecting Ego to Find the Innate Love at Humanity's Core, a new psychology as philosophy. Get that up. I always kind of want to hold things. I forget that the lens is up fairly high on the device that I have. So anyway, hopefully you've maybe checked out the book a little bit since the last time we talked. But I thought in this one I am going to just read a couple of sections from chapter 2, and you'll see why. I thought this was a good one to kind of get into a little bit more about, well, here, you'll see why. Chapter 2 is called Untying the Knots, knots spelled like Bob Knots, Knotts. And the quote that I have at the beginning is, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." Leo Tolstoy. Subhead is Finding My Way. And I'm going to read about 3 pages here, and I think you'll see why. Finding My Way. No doubt you have doubts. Doubts about Beyond Me, perhaps a few, perhaps many. And I suppose that's as it should be in the early going. My surprising theories require much solid evidence I've so far had no opportunity to present. Assuming you're coming at this book without any knowledge of my earlier work, I'm probably safe with one assumption more. You're not sure what to make of me either, not yet. Before the extensive empirical evidence that backs up my ideas, then, you need some better sense of the author. How could I possibly know what I claim to know? Have I really experienced all I say I've experienced, observed directly all the psychological forces I insist I've seen for myself? In short, you likely harbor some version of those same 3 questions I'd asked myself for so long. You may well wonder with justification, who is this man, really, and what? So in this chapter, let me tell you. In the pages immediately ahead, you'll come across several brief accounts of youthful experiences that will require you to judge whether I've offered accurate descriptions of my past. I can assure you that I have, here just as everywhere else in Beyond Me, but you decide for yourself. Ask if the detail and specificity feel real to you. Do the separate events hang together as a credible whole? Do they make sense based on your own experience? On the other hand, the short professional history I'll provide is mostly factual material that you can verify easily in our internet world. If you don't believe that I've done what I say I've done, by all means, check things out for yourself. There's no reason to wonder about any of it. But to begin our sojourn into me and beyond, I should go back some distance, a long distance. Since at least my teenage years, I've always felt there must be some right way to live. Some approach that would allow me to do well by other individuals as I also enjoyed my days. And most importantly, developed whatever talents I could share with the world. Some system or technique of human fulfillment that worked for me in every situation. A key that never failed to unlock the best of Bob. But I could never find it. During an abbreviated college career, I was an English major who took psychology and philosophy classes each semester in the hope of discovering some answers. I tried to fit into the pre-made clothes of existentialism, Freudianism, behaviorism, egoism, pragmatism, but the ideas I gleaned from the theories of other people, in time, all failed to work in my own life. They didn't make sense to me in some way or other. Nonetheless, I believed that any genuine solution must be found at the basic level of human nature somehow, a philosophy or psychology that had been created as an extension of the mind's most profound functions, both the rational and the irrational. The best part of each individual would emerge only by exploring the deepest part of each individual. This notion still seems inescapable. How can someone possibly understand what anything should do without first knowing what it can do, how it is made, how it works at a fundamental level? For me, any other approach would seem like trying to drive a car without learning the basic functions of the brakes and accelerator and tires. and the engine's need for gasoline. With no meaningful knowledge of what a car really is, I can't understand its limitations or its possibilities. I can't make an informed decision about what it can do and what it should do. Around that point, at age 20, an intense emotional crisis catapulted me on an interior search for Bob that has lasted until this moment, more than 4.5 decades later. I'll tell you more about that trauma shortly, but I realized then that no matter how long was needed, I would have to dig by myself for the foundation of who and what I am, for a highly detailed, rational understanding of the things that make me me. There was nothing noble about this journey, believe me. It appeared the only possible route toward that right way to live my life. Right. I felt obsessed to know how I worked and why, which in turn would help me to determine what I could do and should do. My personal ethics would be assembled piece by piece from a science I would carry out with my own methods, using introspection to acquire self-knowledge. I insert the word science in this context somewhat hesitantly, and only after years of reflection and doubt about its accuracy. Is it really science in some fashion that I've been doing? It always has seemed so to me, and I believe that it is science in this sense. My conclusions were formed largely from extensive direct observations that were analyzed critically over many years, then molded slowly into hypotheses that I tested and retested at length in all the ways I could find. As I'll explain later in the book, I also believe that at least some of these hypotheses lend themselves to experiment and confirmation by others who might wish to challenge them. The word science just means knowledge, yes, but science, as our society uses the word, involves a process of outside verification. I would welcome wholeheartedly any effort that subjects my theories to rigorous tests. If you're interested after reading this book, please test away and let me know what you learn. Observation and experimentation aimed at uncovering truth appear built into my nature in some manner, just as investigative reporting came naturally. I say that without pretension or pride, but rather as a simple fact about who I seem to be. Whenever something feels very important to me, I experience a visceral need to analyze it independent of any source of information outside me. I have to figure things out for myself until the major parts seem to fit together comfortably, until I can feel that it makes sense. This compulsion has caused me a great deal of misery, as you might imagine, but it's one important reason that Beyond Me exists, this book. Just a little bit more. By now, I have watched my psyche's mechanisms so often and at such length that I'm certain I can see in great detail how they operate. It's like looking many times daily through some interior microscope. I have never read of someone doing something similar over such a prolonged period, but who knows? Perhaps thousands have done so. In any case, I'm often reminded of William Beaumont, the 19th century physician who for years could directly peer into a gunshot victim's open digestive system to watch its functions firsthand. I often enjoy what may be a similar sense of discovery when observing the functions of my mind. There is no visible gurgle and pulse of these psychological processes, of course, but I can feel them happening inside me all the same. So I read that because in the course of that chapter, I explain in some detail how I was able to learn to dissect my own mind so carefully, so meticulously, and over how many years and how kind of obsessively, really, I did it for so long. And so that is part of this journey that you will experience if you read the book, that explanation about how I did that. And one of the analogies I use is I call it being a connoisseur of the mind. And it reminded me a little bit of learning to understand wines a little better. I still far from any expert on wines. I know a little bit, but not much. But the little that I did learn, I could recognize a process that was step by step, and you learn, you analyze, you question, and there's a little bit of similarity in that process. So I'm not going to make this a real long program this time, but I did want to read one more little section, just briefly. Just again, by way of explaining a little more about who I am if you don't know me. And like I said, I'm hoping we're going to be friends. Okay, this section is called Person by Person. And again, I'm just going to read a little bit. During the next 10 years, I skipped a whole bunch in this chapter, but anyway, that's why you got to read the book if you want all of it. Person by person. During the next 10 years, I turned my investigator's eye toward that specific subject for countless hours. In other words, these fundamental forces inside me. I did this primarily through a process that I call introsentience, which I really explain in this chapter. I prefer, it's a word I've invented to replace introspection, which I think sort of has connotations that I don't like, including a sense of superficiality, or whether I should take that new job or move to this new house, let me be introspective. Well, this is a lot more than that. This is really being able to look inside at who you are. We all have that ability. I just happen to have developed it significantly. So, by now, I was able to see only one truly sensible course to change society in a broad, meaningful way. Marie Curie outlined this idea. This is her quote. "You cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. To that end, each of us must work for his own improvement, and at the same time, share a general responsibility for all humanity, our particular duty being to aid those to whom we think we can be most useful. To truly change the world," this is me talking again now, "to truly change the world, we would have to change individuals one at a time, or so it seemed to me then, and still seems now. In 2005, I founded the Humanity Project, a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a literary and educational mission. My goal was to create practical but innovative programs expressed through artistic methods, all to help change society by changing individuals. A daunting task for sure. And to date, we have 3 major programs grounded in the belief that every person desires a feeling of their individual value more than anything, and that almost everyone looks to other people to help gain this feeling. We think any program intended to motivate human beings must take this reality into full account to be most effective. If we can make kids feel better about themselves by strengthening their feelings of importance, they're more likely to change in the ways we hope for them. All Humanity Project programs are empirically based and empirically tested for results as best we can. The testing shows they work. So, I read that because the chapter obviously goes from me talking about how I was able to dissect what was going on inside my mind, and then why I think it applies to society and to the broader you out there, all of us. And that has a lot to do with it, this idea of trying to change the world one person at a time. The world is a messed up place, in my judgment, because we as individuals are messed up. This book talks about why I believe individuals are messed up and what we can do about it and how we can be a healthier society. So I hope you'll check it out, and I hope you'll come back for the next program. Thanks. Good to see you again. Bye-bye. See you next time.